Welcome, I am Preed, and this is yet another YouTube review of Metal Gear Solid 5. Given that with a recent update, Metal Gear Online has now been added to Metal Gear Solid 5, I figured this would be a good way to start my YouTube channel. This is mainly going to be spoiler free, and I'll be looking at how the game is and how it's been handled on the port. Right off the bat, I'm going to say this is a console port. In that sense, it has been heavily catered to controller input. If you go online, you will find that a lot of people have concerns and issues with the control system with this on PC, and if you've got a controller, I can wholeheartedly recommend that you use it. You will get a much better enjoyment out of the game. The graphics settings surprised me. They scale very well on PCs, but they are all lumped into different sections. For example, you'll notice that there's no anti-aliasing. This is all handled in the post-processing setting. As soon as you take it off of low, it then adds an FXAA effect to it, and you can't turn it off. Another thing that you'll notice is that there's no real setting for being able to tell it how far you want things to pop in. This is because it's all tied in with the resolution. Your draw distance in the game isn't an option you can really toggle. It's by changing your resolution, you'll change your pop-in distance. Lower resolution, you pop in sooner. If you go up to 4K, it'll render much higher distances. With the sound settings, it is very minimal. You've got no customization in regards to audio, voice, the tapes that you listen to in-game, which is a little bit infuriating because sometimes what's going on in the game can detract from actually enjoying the experience of what's being said. So without any further explanation, let's jump right in. I have a medium, what I would consider a medium spec rig. So as you can see, it's not too bad a loading time. This is mother base. This is your base of operations. It's where you have, these are the people behind the scenes on what you do. You have equipment that you can go into the field with. What this mother base enables you to do is to be able to build the items, to be able to support you in the field. This is done quite simply by recruiting people in the game. This is normally by putting them to sleep, knocking them unconscious, and then fultoning them out of the battlefield. They spend a little bit of time in the brig, and then they're yours. One of my grievances with this game is apparently there's a morale statistic, and by going up to the people, they see you, it boosts their morale. They salute you. It would have been nice to be able to salute them back. At the moment, the only way you can say thank you is to punch them, or knock them unconscious, which isn't really a great way to say thank you to someone. The entire area is, you build it, so it can get quite large, and it is impressive to see something like this that you spend your time making in-game, using the things that resources that you get and getting more people, but there isn't really that much to do. On each one of the pylons because if we have a look at this little mappy here, as you see, each main platform is made up of 4 things, but there's only one thing to do on each of the platforms, and it's just a target practice system. You probably will not end up spending a lot of time here, because even though you have this, a lot of your interaction with Mother Base is going to be through these menus. So let's now move to what I like to call the halfway loading screen. So we call in the helicopter, and again, this is one of those things you will spend some time in this game waiting. The chopper that I've got here has the maximum amount of boost on its speed, so you're seeing ideal situation in regards to how quickly this chopper can appear. But once you get on the chopper, you then got to wait for it a little while before it actually decides to take off, as you're seeing. There's no way to skip this. You've got to go through this every single time that you want to exit or enter an area, which can be frustrating. It gives you a very nice scenic view of wherever you are, but it's still just delaying the next part of the game. At which point it does some loading, and you'll then be at what I call the halfway stage on the loading screen, because instead of taking you straight into the game, it takes you to the AAC, which is basically you in the helicopter. This is where you decide what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. You have a few more functions that you don't normally have with the iDroid system, Mother Base control, however you want to look at it. There are certain functions that you don't have in the field, like the customization. You have reports on various units. You have development, so this is basically how you get your equips to go into the field. You basically end up going into this section, spending the money that you earn, the resources that you gather, and you develop weapons for you to take out in the field. Now, there's a lot of weapons, and depending on your play style, you might end up using a lot of these. I haven't used about 80 to 85% of these weapons, even though I have developed tons. And then the other thing to bear in mind is with the recent updates, they've been adding new equips, and all of these have new restrictions added onto them. So in this instance, I haven't got the R&D level or the medical level to be able to make it. And all of these things to actually develop take real time. There's 2 types of real time in this game. This one that I'm currently developing only develops as you're playing the game. So if I was to log out now, go and have something to eat or something to drink, come back in about 2 hours time, load up the game, that would still be at 1 hour 40. Another thing that you can do in here, which is all time related, is once you get a certain distance into the game, you can do combat deployments. This is where you send your soldiers out to do missions for you. And these pass in proper real time, especially the online missions, and it tells you how long they would take. So if I was to do this one, it's going to take 50 of my soldiers, and I won't have those soldiers for 6 days and 12 hours. This is kind of where you're seeing the ideas between Facebook games creeping in, whereby you've got to wait for things to happen before you can carry on with something. You will find at certain points that you need something to be able to do a mission, and if you haven't already got the things that you need, you're going to have to go out there and farm people and then resources, and then you've got to build it, and then you've got to wait for them to build it, which can create barriers to your enjoyment. It does mean that there's some instances where you won't be able to progress in the game because you need this special thing. With all the updates, they've also, at a certain point in the game, you'll gain access to FOBs, which is where you can make more bases like this, and that you plant them in other places of the world. However, these bases are open to you being attacked by other players trying to steal your resources. This is where the online component comes in. But to encourage players to try and invade it, as soon as you unlock that system, your money and your resources gets divided between the two areas. This way, there's a reason for the people who want to get resources to make stuff can invade you, because you've put resources. You've got no control over what you have on your base and what you have on the forward operating bases. It means if the servers go down, if you look at the bottom right hand corner in the GMP, which is the money, I have a large amount, but it's got underneath a series of numbers plus a second series of numbers and an online symbol. If I was to get disconnected from the internet, then the online resources will disappear, and as you can see, half of my funds will disappear. In the promotion of this, they did kind of suggest the entire idea that the online component is optional. I'd have to say that that is not true. The game forces you into a situation of which, to progress in the game, you've got to activate the online component. The reason that I call this the halfway loading screen is because it's now at this point I can actually look at going out into the field. So we just had one loading screen to get here, so I'm about to go to another screen. So let's go for a free run. The maps are okay. I was actually expecting the maps to be a bit bigger, but they're okay for what they are. All these little helicopter icons are where you can go and land, and all the little purple circles are where side ops are, which are non-mission games. So let's go to Afghanistan. This is your equipment screen. This is where you can decide what loadout you have, what buddy, what vehicle, and other equips. I'm going to leave it as is because I don't want to spoil other buddies that you can unlock. But we're just going as we are because I don't really need anything specific. When deploying, you have the option of doing ASAP, so it does it there and then, or you can wait for a morning insertion or a night insertion. So you do have a little bit of freedom over what time of day you decide to do a mission. So as you see, we're very early morning. Time passes not in real time, obviously, but every time you go into a new area, you have to deal with this little bit where you're going in on the helicopter and they take you to the location. When playing the game, it spoils itself. During this section, when you're doing a mission, it's coming up with the credits of who's in it, who wrote the mission, who created the mission, and who directed, which means a couple of those end up being Hideo Kojima, so you're going to get to see that name a lot playing this game. But it is frustrating because you could go into a mission not knowing what to expect, and boom, right there, it tells you who you're going to be fighting. Getting the gameplay side of this, it very much feels like a console game when using a controller. It's very responsive. I'm getting a perfect 60 frames per second here. It feels good. I did think that the graphics looked fantastic when I was playing it, but it's very simple environments and they're very sparse. The game itself, you basically need to infiltrate areas and sections. Normally what you do is you come up to a location, you get out your binoculars and you go through, and you just end up tagging people. Some of these people, like based on how you play the game, they adapt. So this gentleman here has night vision goggles and body armor. You can, should you want to, you can go into combat deployment, and then you go into here and you go down to the bottom and you've got these deployments that you can set. As you can see, they take between 30 minutes and 45 minutes of real time to do. And you can send people to take out their sniper rifles. You can send people take out directional mines. You can take out their flashlights. You can take out their helmets, their body armor. So there's less of them in the field. But after a while, you find that by constantly doing that, you're making the game itself easy. See, the game doesn't really have a difficulty setting. You can't, when the game runs up, you can't go, oh, I want easy difficulty, I want normal difficulty, I want hard difficulty. There is none of that. In essence, your difficulty, as you progress in the game, is defined by the combat deployment on whether or not you decide to make the enemy easier. I myself would have preferred an option to be able to pick easy, normal or hard. So once you've tagged your people for the area, you then can choose to either go in all stealthy, trying to avoid everyone that's about and do the mission with 0 kills, or you can go the other route and be loud and noisy and kill everyone. The idea in a sense is great that you can do that, but you've got the complication of, if I look at these, this person's A+, at a certain point in the game, you'll actually want him instead, so you can make better equipment. So it kind of stops you from going all guns blazing, because there may be that one guy that you need. And in other times, there's going to be lots of people that you don't need. Like this gentleman, if you look at all the stats on the right, you could just kill him if you wanted, and it kind of does get that way. The game doesn't force you into completely being one route or the other. It's very natural. The guns work very well. Changing equipment is very easy. It's all done off the D-pad. But what I find a shame is that that is a major outpost. But if we look at the map, we have this entire section of map down here. And there's absolutely nothing here. The world does feel barren unless you're going near a populated zone. Now, I could understand if you get into trouble that they wanted the people to be able to just run away and leave the place in alert status, but there's no reason that you'd want to run this far away. It is just empty unless you're going towards bases. It does not get populated. You have bases all over the place, and you have mini checkpoints, and they're not manned by a lot of people. It is just very, very sparse. You would have thought that there would be other people in this, other factions, for you to work with or for you to not kill. But it isn't. It is just you, your buddy that you take into the field, and the enemy. Which is a bit of a shame. If you look at games like Assassin's Creed and so forth, there are enemies, but there's also normal people in it. So, closing thoughts on this game. I'm conflicted on this, but I'm going to be saving that for my next video where it's a non-spoiler discussion. I would recommend it, however, I would not recommend it at its current price point. Just for the simple fact that there's lots of areas where it feels that something's not complete or there's something missing. It's a very, very good, solid start of a game. It is a great port of a console game, but it is not quite there. It is not, to me, it's not a game of the year. It is fantastic if you want a game where you want to pick up, play, and learn a new. This has completely changed the way that I look at stealth games. I don't think I will be able to play a stealth game now without making a comparison to this. But that being said, it just has a few faults here and there that just lets it down overall. I would like to say thank you for listening to my little review of this game. I hope that you come away with it with some thoughts and impressions. And as I said previously, I will be doing a follow-up video to this, where I will be explaining more of what I actually think on the game in a spoiler situation. So, if you haven't played the game, I do not recommend that you watch that video. This has been Preed. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you have any thoughts or comments on what I've said here, please leave in the comments. And I hope that you have a good one.